So, welcome. We've been talking about thin core, but I'd like to take this up a notch or two. Thin core is part of an overall strategy that we call A2A ERP. And really the basis of that is, how do we create something open? How do we create something where AI doesn't have to be a promise or a hope for tomorrow? It's something for today. And I'm delighted to have Lucy sat here with me from NTT to help us sort of explore that. Lucy, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So Lucy Thornton, I've been at NTT. Actually, I'm a relatively new joiner. And I think it's really interesting, in this moment of AI, because I genuinely think we need new voices. And one of the reasons I joined NTT is because they are such a sleeping giant, one of SAP's largest partners globally. 90 billion pound per annum organization.
Wow.
So real tech giant. And I'm really excited because I think that, in this moment of positive disruption from AI, I think NTT are perfectly positioned. They've got a heritage that leads right the way down to the data center. So when we look at regulatory environments or business resiliency, sovereignty, all of these things that are now kind of emerging, NTT are perfectly positioned in my mind.
A lot of people had experience with NTT. So my little secret is, I'll share the audience, is I used to be the SAP account executive for NTT in North America. So I got to know you guys, and even, this was a long time ago before I had grey hair, even back then, you guys had amazing engineering resources, just incredible engineering resources. So
yeah,
I'm delighted to see what you've come up with. So everybody's moving to an agentic space. They're reimagining their business processes. Happy days. What's the problem at the moment?
So I think that, it's been an incredible journey of growth right now for technology, for big tech. And what it's meant is that we have what I consider to be traditional IT, stuck in the data centers. We've got servers and storage on premise. Loads of organizations still have this. We've had a load of organizations that have gone SaaS for their digital transformation. So we've got all these monolithic old applications still sat in the data centers. What we've got here has become additive complexity in SaaS. Net promoter scores are quite low, and they've never really, the data and integration challenges have never really been solved. Then we've also got cloud, which, everybody's gone cloud first, which has also become additive, very technology driven transformation as opposed to business engagement. And all of this is cost and complexity. And we're about to now add on AI. And I think the real problem is how do we solve for all of this? And how does AI start to have a fundamental impact on all of this and not become something additive over here?
Right.
And I think that that's what we're going to talk about in terms of strategy today, because I think that, it's fundamental that we have an inflection point on business strategy, on enterprise strategy, because I genuinely think in this moment there will be big winners and big losers. And we've talked in the past about there will be winners and losers, but I don't think the risk has ever been as great as it is right now to get this right in this moment.
I'm really interested in where you say additive, and I see that in the way some companies are talking about it. I see that in the architectures that they have. This AI is just another thing that sits on top of our reporting or on top of our database. So what do you see these sort of market forces to be that are stopping people thinking strategically about this? Because this is a time to stop and go, I think this is what you're saying, let's not just add it on to the pile. Let's actually think about how we were doing things end to end and see if AI can transform what we're thinking about for business. But what's stopping us from doing that?
I think there's a market expectation on a lot of the big tech firms. We talk a lot about SAP, and there's a market expectation that SAP needs to keep growing, right? It needs to there's shareholder value here, right? And so we're on this trajectory where we've had very traditional old technology that we've not managed to replace. It's still there, and yet we need to kind of keep on this trajectory, and these organizations need to keep locking in the enterprise to the next version. And what that's leading to is some inflection points where the old monoliths like SAP are no longer being supported. There is then sort of like well, you can go to SaaS. And one of the big mistakes that people make is they suddenly think that if they move to SaaS, suddenly it's shiny new technology. The reality is it's just a different way to procure it, right? And it gets you, when we think about the cycles of true ups, of licensing true ups and licensing auditing and all these things where you feel totally locked in, the ultimate lock-in is big SaaS, right? So I think people are being forced into that decision right now because people know that the AI optionality is coming. And they need to go now before before people actually start to have viable options.
And SAP's I think they've got quite a modern strategy. I mean, I like their business data cloud. I like what they're trying to do with RISE. Their AI is coming from a place of really understanding the business process. So there's a lot of value in what SAP is doing. Are you suggesting, though, that some of these vendors, and I don't think it's just SAP, are using AI as a lock-in or to be less open? What is that? You see that one of that as one of sort of the pulling forces here?
I think that what we've seen is obviously, the monolithic application space is incredibly functionality rich. Right. And so, finance and finance transformation is a huge market opportunity for organizations, right through from your real high-end consulting, or this is the ecosystems of people, right, that deliver these transformations. And I guess what I'm saying is like that functionality can't be replaced overnight by an agent, let's be clear.
Yes.
But what I am saying is I think people are getting to the point, and I think that what I'm picking up on is people don't have a choice. And I don't think that that's right.
Right.
I think all organizations right now should think about building out their optionality. I think in the past, optionality hasn't been viable in a way that it is right now.
Right.
And I'm not saying that you shouldn't go SAP RISE or you shouldn't go SAP SaaS or any of the monoliths, whether that be Oracle or, but what I am saying is you should be building out your optionality. Because what we do have is application sprawl, right? What used to be a software service now is a platform, right? And that platform is suddenly booking your meeting rooms and it's publishing your lunch menu. And it was, these applications weren't necessarily designed to do that. Right. But we're paying. And at the moment, Matt, I'm sure we're going to come on to this, we're doing a lot of work with organizations that are building out that optionality. And what we're realizing repeatedly is that people aren't touching the sides of these software solutions or these platforms in the way that they think they are, that they're paying for.
Right.
So how do we kind of right size them for the value that you get out of them? And the other interesting thing that I always think about is organizations have to think about how they differentiate themselves.
Yeah.
If everybody sat on the same generic technology solution, how do you differentiate your brand? How do you give a better employee experience? How do you give a better customer experience if everybody's on the same monolithic applications that don't allow you sort of like, that customization and that real sort of engagement that you're looking for?
So you're saying, it's not that you're saying don't do SAP, you're saying make SAP coexist with Salesforce and the others in such a way that it gives you that optionality. It gives you that speed. One of the things that I see a lot of in the market, and I think it comes from the data science heritage of AI, is this, well, to get AI, we need to put our data in one place. And I mean, to be honest with you, from a Google perspective, I love that because that means put it all on BigQuery.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of merit in making sure the data's clean. And by the way, not just structured data, but unstructured data too.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I feel that comes as a consequence of actually moving quickly with AI. It's like, I need to wait till I get all this perfect. What do you see that in the marketplace, or do you see a different
mix? We do, but also almost like as an employee, I kind of feel we've gone through that life cycle. And very early on, my background and heritage has always been working within engineering. Yeah. And so from very early on, it was like, well, no, AI sits over here with the data team, and the data team, on the data science side, and building models. But ultimately, what we're now seeing, and as we have our own sort of agentic factory offerings and stuff like that we're having a lot of success with, is actually, these models are built.
Yeah.
Good is good enough on the data side, on our own data.
Yeah.
And actually the data that you're already using within your business processes is the same data we can use to identify a business process, right? So unless you start to hit sort of like real hard lines and red flags around risk, which we always identify up front, you know, I kind of feel that like perfect's the enemy of good in this situation. And the muscle memory that you build and the rigor that you build within your organization with getting minimum viable products out there, you know, built with AI and getting AI products out, you know, is far more valuable than waiting.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you know, the perfect data will never come, you know, and a lot of the time, or the too much data you have and the data strategy piece. And, you know, I don't see why these things can't work in parallel. I think that the AI proof of concept, the AI factory, I would say surfaces some of these issues in a more meaningful way that makes you more accelerated in your ability to solve for them.
It's interesting. So it's more of an evolutionary sort of approach rather than this sort of, I'm going to do my upgrade, then do AI. We've seen that as well with the thin core, which is we see customers going, right, we've got to reimagine all these processes. We don't even know where to start. So let's not try and do everything at once. Let's just start one place and sort of migrate it over. Interesting, you talked about, you know, the use of machine learning and auto ML and all the rest of it. The other trend I'm seeing, I'm interested if you resonate with it, is the combination of agents and machine learning models. It isn't one or the other. And I reflect on, I think myself quite fortunate because Alphabet's a very large user of SAP.
Yeah.
And we've been using large language models for 6 years. And if you think about that, that's 3 years longer than most. And so our engineering team in finance and procurement have been seeing patterns. And one of the patterns that's forming is that there is a combination of a machine learning model looking for trends. So I'll give you an example. We use in our cash management.
Yeah.
So we look at, we have the machine learning model looking for trends, looking for recommendations on what our cash positions should be.
Yep.
And what we do is we use the agents to go and inform that model, first of all. So it might go off and say, right, that data center we're building, Lucy, is it ahead of schedule or is it behind schedule? Are we going to need more money or less money?
Yeah.
And the agent gathers, and then the agents go to the banks and they start figuring out, how can I buy cash in different regions and exchange it? So it's not everything's agents, everything's machine learning models. The patterns I'm seeing that, and that scenario, I can't tell you the actual number, is an eye-watering saving benefit to us.
Yeah.
Do you see that? It's not agents or machine learning models. It's not. There's almost like this battle in these different departments, but it isn't. It's when all of this comes together. The SAP talks to Salesforce, and Salesforce talks to the agent, the machine learning.
Yeah.
Do you feel
100%.
that's the same?
But firstly, let me thank you for humbling me about how great Google is and how they do these things, because I was unaware of like that whole sort of like chain of events that you've just spoken about, and it's like, wow. But also I think that like, and another side thing, major capital projects, I mean, come on, like we know the challenges around them as at a national level, right? Like if we could start to have a meaningful impact on better management of our massive capital projects, then I think that we'll be in a good space. Yeah, I think that where we're starting from with a lot of organizations is really understanding the business problem you're solving for and that operational work stream, right? And so like, so if I look at something like, we're doing a lot around ITSM and sort of like really established, mature business processes.
Yeah.
The answer is not always a large language model. The answer is not always an agent. The answer can just be some very simple automation.
Yeah.
But what I would say, and where we're seeing the big investment, the big returns come, is how you manage your agents, right? And how you recognize what agents are essentially acting badly, but also which agents are working on unmeaningful work, right? So have we put an agent in the wrong space doing the wrong thing? Therefore it's not really adding any value. It's like, you know, it's like managing all of your employees. Have we put them on a meaningless task that they can't do, that they're not, you know, that they're then how do we manage that, right? So I think that AI is not always the solution. It's actually, we've got to make sure as technologists, we obsess over the business problem. We understand our business problem. We understand the outcomes we're looking to drive. And therefore, we right size and we solution accordingly, right?
Fantastic. Could not +1, as they say.
Thank you.
So openness is the challenge. Not waiting.
Yeah.
Everything to be perfect. And strong governance. Making sure that we got. I like that sort of a maniacal focus on the business problem. I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
Right.
How does NTT help solve those problems?
So I think that there's two elements to this when we look at sort of like, all of those competing forces right now. And as I say, that optionality that I'm talking about that we build out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm never going to say that like a sort of like a software solution, something that is kind of mainstream in the market is not the right answer. But what I will continue to say is you should have options. And what I believe in this moment, and I could be wrong, is that I think it's no regret spend. And I'll tell you why. Because I think as soon as sort of like some of these big SaaS software houses realize that you have options, I think they come to you in a meaningful way commercially as well.
Interesting.
So I do think that what you can do in this moment is start to go, okay, how do we use agentics? How do we use modern engineering? How do we use cloud native engineering in the cloud around something like SAP to build out our optionality, to start to reduce it to the things that it's really good at and the value that's there, to then start to build out all of the stuff around the edge that gives us our market differentiation, that gives us our better employee experience, all these things that we want. And then at the same time, then I think then the second piece of this is almost like that area of success that we're having at NTT, which is around the Agentic Factory. Our Agentic Factory, is not a standard off the shelf, but at the same time, it is all about accessing Vertex AI at scale, solving for, common business at the moment, sort of some of the real common business processes that we use every single day around things like ITSM, that allows you the option to start to kind of cut back, if you will, the thin core type thing on some of these applications. So then you can decide at this point, does this application just become a system of record? Yeah. And if it is a system of record now, is this the right place to be storing all this data?
Right.
And that's how we're approaching some of these things, because what we do know is that, I spoke to a client this week, they had over 2,000 applications. They were pretty concerned, and with merit, I would say that they weren't over all of these applications at all, and that some of them were having, they were very little impact in their business.
Yeah.
Well, my view is like, let's do an application assessment. Let's understand what some of these applications are doing, and let's see if that's a really good starting place to kind of start to do some consolidation and to start to put an agentic factory in place that churns through some of that straight to agents.
You can hear your heritage as a company coming through. You're looking at this very much as an engineering perspective. It's like, how do I sort the engineering out to give me a strong foundation for openness, for a strong foundation for flexibility, if I'm playing this back to you.
Yeah.
So that when someone with a business problem turns up, that we have not, let's face it, one thing I'm certain of at the moment is there's a lot of uncertainty. I know that sounds a bit of a cheesy thing to say, but you just don't know what you're going to be asked for next year. Forget AI for a second. Look at what's going on in the world. So that I can see that sort of, is that what you'd say sort of NTT sort of gift to the market, is to be able to think of this from an engineering perspective. And I see some other partners that are coming at this legitimately from the other direction, which is, where's the business going to go? How do I reimagine the business? And then you prescribe technology after that. But
I think so. And obviously I've spent years in consulting as well, right? So I understand. And when we're in consulting, there are some very complex, not just business problems that we have to solve for, but, we've got massive humanitarian problems that we have to solve for, right? And when we're solving like we need real deep domain expertise that really, we talk about understanding a problem. You really have to understand when you're rolling out something like hydrogen across the network, when you're when you're looking at like these kind of problems, you need real domain expertise. And there is absolutely a place for that, right? To solve those kind of problems and leverage the likes of AI to support them. But I think from an NTT perspective, and where organizations can get going fast, is almost like, let's start to build a rigor. Let's start to build the foundations of this new organization, of this next phase of digital transformation. Let's be clear, what we do know about high-performing organizations is that it is their ability to solve their own problems that makes them a high-performing organization. It makes them an innovator. And high innovation organizations are the most likely to succeed. It's the biggest indication we have right now. So what does that mean? Well, that means that you need an operating model that enables you to understand the business problems, solve for them, solution and scale them into production quickly, right? And I think that that's what Agentics also gives us. And I think that that's what NTT gives, a scaled approach to Agentics, which means that, we can start with established business processes. We can optimize the business processes as we go. But my view is the organizations that get going now are the ones that are going to be more successful, especially with that sort of like cloud native engineering approach, because there is a real risk right now that if people start to kind of, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't look for the AI that's sat within the application, but you've got to look at the supply chain around it. And if it, what we do know is that there's only so many frontier models out there, right? And what you don't want to do is buy the same frontier model 10 different times in 10 different applications because they've all partnered with the same frontier model and paying for it 10 times through different applications, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's break out straight to the model and let's do it at an enterprise layer.
Makes perfect sense. I like it. So if there was one thing that you would tell the audience to do as sort of a next step, what's the one takeaway that you give them today?
I mean, like, I'm a big sort of believer in speed to value. I think that it is about, engaging, getting going, and getting that strategy right, getting minimum viable products out there. The earlier you get going and the quicker we get to start on these things, the more likely you are to kind of, as I say, start to recognize what works for your organization and what doesn't.
I like it. Lucy, I think that's a great place to sort of pause. I could keep chatting to you about this for probably the rest of the day, the rest of the evening. It's a fascinating topic. And I mean, it's clear to me that you and the organization have a really good vision of where to take customers. And thank you for sharing some of that with us.
No
Absolutely
worries.
Fantastic. I learned a lot today. Well, with that said, we've expanded the conversation to be more to do with A2A ERP. We've talked about thin core. We've talked about why wait. Why not get on with it now? We've talked about why be open in terms of the architecture. So we will continue the conversation. If you're interested in learning more about A2A and thin core, watch out for the next episode.